Your director is fuming, your dashboard takes 10 minutes to load, and the numbers, they keep breaking. By the end of this video, you're going to know how to clean filthy CSVs, crunch a million rows in seconds, and rebuild that bloated Excel dashboard in Python. Load it directly into Power BI and turn into the company's data hero. Let's roll. Problem X, dirty source files. So we have a couple of lines here up at the top, lines 4 and 5, which are just setting a couple variables for our file names where we're going to save the files at the end of this. Now, next we have the read CSV. This pulls in the file, does exactly what it says it's going to do. It reads that CSV file. Next, we have parse dates, which forces the order date into real dates. No more crazy string chaos. We have NA values, which converts the blanks or the NAs out to nulls. Then one chain drops all the blank rows and the duplicates so that you have zero manual filtering that you're going to have to do in your files. Now, next we have a couple of lines here where we have two vectorized string calls, which are trimming out the white space and unifying some of the casting. White space is just those spaces that sometimes sneak in at the beginning and end of a string, right? Of a just text. And so this is 100 times faster than anything you could do in Excel. And when you hear somebody say vectoring, it's kind of like a snowplow. It clears a whole lane with one big push instead of somebody out there shoveling by hand one scoopful at a time. Now, finally, we have a couple of print statements here. This is so that we get instant feedback. We see how many bad dates we have or wrong data types, and so that they pop out before our director ever sees a pound ref on a report. Now, clean file, cool. Now, melt a million rows without melting your laptop? That's next level. Let's take a look. Next, we're going to handle a large data file, right? Workbooks often choke on big data. Here, in this section, we have a couple of different things here going on. We have a for loop that is looking at the sales amount and the cost amount and just making sure that they're numeric, right? They're just coercing those into numeric data types. We're checking for some bad rows, right? So is NA, and it's going to clear out those bad rows, right? It's going to tell us how many there are, and it's going to drop them. So real simple for this part right here. But this next piece, this line 13, this is where it really gets hot, right? This is where we really are doing the magic. And where Python is so much better than Excel, right? Here we're adding a new column called profit, where we're subtracting the sales amount from the cost amount. So it does it simply, it does it quickly, a million rows all at once in an instant. This is very similar to an Excel file. This is your conversion of A1 minus B1, where A is your sales and B is your cost. But at a scale of a million plus rows, 10 million rows, 50 million rows. Imagine having to try to do all that in Excel and how long it would crank and crank and crank. So remember, the last time that you created a pivot in that huge Excel file and it crashed, no more, right? We have pandas that has, math functions that run at warp speed. So a million rows calculate in under a second. So let's run this and you'll see it runs in, less than a second. Again, this is a million row file, less than a second. Incredibly quick. So next, let's take a look at chunk loading. So we have, you don't eat an elephant all in one bite. You take it one bite at a time, right? No more memory available errors. We've all seen this particular error, and I'll pop it up on the screen right here. That says that Excel can't complete this task with the available resources, right? You've seen that before? I know you have. All right. Next, we have Parquet. So the chunking, it is just kind of, we're telling it to process 200,000 records at once, right? In each instant. And it does take a half a second, but a half a second, it loaded 6 chunks at 200,000 records per chunk. And so, grand total from the chunk loader was this many bytes. So a huge file. Again, 6 times 200,000 is 1.2 million, right? So 1.2 million records in under 1 second that it processed. All right, let's look at Parquet. Parquet loads about 10 times faster than a CSV and cuts your file size in half. Parquet is a super compressed file. If you think of CSV as a cardboard box, cheap but kind of bulky, Parquet is that vacuum sealed bag, right? It compresses all that data just like your vacuum does. Same goods, half the space, and loads incredibly quicker. So fast numbers are great, but slow dashboards still sink careers. I used this playbook back when I was hired as a data person on a project management team that had been drowning in 5+ gigabyte trackers. 1 week in Python and the dashboards opened in seconds, and my director named me Fix It Gamble. Now, let's do the same for you. Here is how we rebuild that bloated dashboard for super speed. Now, we're going to take both the raw but clean million row sales data and we're going to put it into SQL Server, right? And really, we're just going to store that raw data because in SQL Server, we could create a view that has that summary that loads so much quicker than anything that we could do in Excel. So here, now Power BI can point straight at that detail and that summary view and load in seconds instead of in minutes. And nobody lasts longer than about 10 minutes as a user trying to wait for an Power BI report or an Excel report to load. So so no more CSV exports, no more files sitting out there, no more Excel files to worry about crashing. SQL Server is kind of like the teacher's fridge, right? It's storage that only a chosen few can reach. But once your data's in there, everyone with a hall pass, so Power BI in this instance, can grab exactly what they need. Go one step further and automate this nightly with Python, your Python update sales dashboard script here in Task Scheduler or as a cron job, which is just a scheduled job, and you just became your department's superhero, right? It's something that will run automatically nightly. Everybody gets in the morning. Power BI reports are already refreshed with all of the data through the night before, and it is there in an instant at everybody's fingertips. So here are some next level points. Use the sales detail for row level drill throughs. No more VLOOKUP chains, no more crazy date strings. We fixed all that in this Python script. Use a monthly sales view for 99% of your visuals. Something that's tiny, a smaller data set for Power BI to load. And it keeps that Power BI file slim so that it's not this gigantic file. PBIX is the type of Power BI extension. So when you see PBIX, that's a Power BI file. And it's just like your XLSX file for Excels. So if you have no gateway, this PBIX file can refresh locally. For cloud refresh, copy the connector and the DSN to an on-prem gateway box and enable some custom connectors. A gateway, it's kind of like your office coffee runner, and it refreshes all your reports. And the DSN is kind of like your GPS so that Power BI knows exactly how to get to the data. So that's just a couple of crazy analogies that I came up with. So here are the lies that you have been telling yourself. Python is hard. Well, you just wrote 5 new commands that automates all that processing that you've been doing in Excel. I need admin rights. You could go out and probably download Miniconda without any admin rights on your computer. Excel is dead, right? Excel just with all this big data is just impossible to keep up with. But you can link directly to the SQL Server from Excel, and Excel now drinks from that clean, faster data set that you cleaned and organized with Python. So still, you can still use Excel. Nobody's telling you you can't. Business users love Excel. Don't abandon it. Okay, now a couple of pitfalls here and some homework for you. Blind copy and pasting. This is a sure way to see bugs. Don't just blindly move the data. Make sure you're looking at it. Make sure that you're doing some exploratory analysis, and understand, take 60 seconds, take a couple hours, depending on how wide that file is, and take a look at the data. Make sure that you're doing the cleaning that needs to occur there. And next, again, schedule things nightly. Then step up and graduate and start looking at Airflow, which is a orchestration tool that really will take your skills to the next level. You just crossed over from busy work to real problem solving. Go out, install Python, run the template, break something, because if you're not breaking something, you're not working. Fix it, and that is how you learn. Need help with the installation process? Watch this video that I did that walks you through installing Python and Visual Studio, which is the tool that we use here to write this code. And I'll see you next time.